What's up guys, and today is Ravenbound. From the earliest days of gaming, hacking and slashing through enemies and surviving deadly foes with gloves has had an incredible appeal. Over time, the options for both the player and the enemies expanded as the hardware became less and less limited, leading some masochistic developers to wonder, what if the enemies were always stronger than you? Souls-like games emerged, a genre defined by the original game, Dark Souls. These grueling games are near-constant tests of endurance against legions of super-powered underlings, leading to clashes with monsters that bring even these deadly minors to their knees. But over time, the complexity of Souls-like games wanes as their map is explored and remembered. The location of enemies can be predicted and planned, items and equipment can be found and placed on the safest route. Randomization in these games has become mainstream for thrill seekers who are trying to replicate the challenge that comes with first entering the game without any knowledge. Ravenbound, from developers Systemic Reactions, aims to ease that edge while offering new approaches to the mechanics of Soul-like games. Your character, which you choose from 3 random choices at the start of each game, becomes Raven's vassal, and it's up to you to use his divine power and your resolve to overthrow the betrayer. With their Raven's talons, gripping hook and ability to transform into a raven to fly around the map, there is no limit to what you can do, except for creatures affected by the betrayer's quirk called hate. You will be able to fight these enemies using a variety of weapons, such as traditional sword and shield, or 2 battle axes. Land quick strikes to build focus, then release it when fully charged to boost your attack. You can also use a little more patience and deal more damage, as well as fill up the opponent's stage and matter faster. Block your opponent's blows with a shield created from your essence. Just make sure it doesn't shatter and leave your defenseless. If you put up a shield in time, you will knock opponents back and become temporarily invulnerable. You can also dodge enemy attacks, and by doing it so at the right moment, you briefly speed up your attacks. Destroying strong enough enemies will drop shards that are incredibly useful. Once you get 3, you can trade them in for the Ravenbound's main feature, the loot deck. Using these fragments, you can choose one of the 3 possible cards, each with a different effect. Some cards are various weapons or armor that can be equipped, others are passive abilities. Sometimes you can even find cards that, when activated, do something like improve your gear, increase your stats, or even give you some resources instantly. However, these cards are not free. Most of them require mana to activate, and mana is a very rare resource that can only be obtained from cards. It becomes an interesting balancing act between which abilities to use, which cards to draw, and how much danger you are willing to take in exchange for more mana options and chances. Remember, healing doesn't come cheap. This system is complicated by the aforementioned hatred. The traitor not only spoiled the people and the land, he even goes to the prey. In most cases, when you want to open a chest or pick up leftover treats left over from another player's bad move, you need to grab hatred fragments first. They replace one of the cards you play with the guaranteed hate card, instantly turning the rest of the world into a more dangerous place to explore. You might think that taking too many of these cards would cause the hatred meter to fill up, which constantly causes one of your cards to become a hatred card. You are wrong. Obviously, using fragments in general increases this counter, which means that mining fragments leads to self-sabotage. This formula reduces your options over time, and at the same time makes it impossible to take loot with impunity. The loot deck mechanic in Ravenbound is something I found very interesting and enjoyable to use. The way she requires you to tactically think about what to take and when to use it was a lot of fun. However, it doesn't take long to play for some of Ravenbound's shortcomings to begin to become apparent. For example, you'll quickly learn that defeating enemies and plundering the world is either painfully slow or necessary punishment. Your character is relatively weak at the start of the game, and you have to upgrade yourself to stand a chance. However, the only way to become stronger is to destroy enemies or loot everything they can be found. The problem is that there is no effective way to remove hatred from the chests you find around the world fast enough, or in large enough radius to make it worthwhile. This means that you will either have to dig to get stronger without risk, time consuming and boring, or take the loot despite hatred, very punishable. And the game even seems to encourage this risky approach, as every enemy you are encountering drops 2 fragments, and every hate cost chest and loot pile gives you 1 hate fragment. You can get more cards when playing risky than when playing cautiously, even though those cards tend to be worse for you. In general, there is something here. Ravenbound is a good game. Its mechanics are well debugged and optimized, but inconsistently. In some parts of the game you feel great, for example, in the opening sequence, but for every